Hi everyone, my name is Gaetano and I'm a developer advocate in the Amazon Alexa team. And today, in this video, I will walk you through the creation of a slideshow project using Alexa Presentation Language, or APL. So, you may be wondering why I've chosen to build a slideshow, and the answer is very simple. If you want to build something like this with APL, there are some of the advanced concepts that you have to understand, like data binding, custom components, transformers, and commands. But if none of them are making sense to you right now, don't panic, because by the end of the video, they definitely will. Now, before we get into it, I'd like to make a comment. So, this is not a getting started kind of tutorial. If you're looking for something like this, please check out the Alexa Zero to Hero series on the channel that covers Alexa Presentation Language as well. I will be assuming that you know what an APL layout is and how the authoring tool works, for which I will leave the link in the description. So, without further ado, let's start. There we go. So, when creating a new APL document, the first thing that I usually do is adding a container that represents the base, and then we're going to add our core component right below it, which is the pager. Then we want it to take the entire screen, so I'm going to set it to 100 VW for the width and 100 VH for the height. Same thing for the pager here, 100 VW and 100 VH. There is something to keep in mind here. The pager component generates a page for every child that we add right below it. So it means that if we add two text under the pager, then two pages are going to be generated. Let me show you real quick. So our pager is there. I'm going to add two text components and set them to something like page 1 and page 2. And I am expecting our document to have two pages now. Click on the preview mode and there we go. Page 1 and page 2. So for the slideshow, we want our page to show both an image and a text. And to do so, we need to wrap them under a container first. This is quite crucial because if we forget to do it, then we will end up having a page with the image and another page with the text. Do not forget to set the sizes here again. Now, every component that we add under this is going to be part of the page. So, image and text. Now we should set the size for the components of the page. So I'm going to set 100 VW for the width of the image and 90 VH for the height, because we want it to take 90% of the screen. For the text instead, we are going to set 100 VW for the width and 10 VH for the height. Alright, now we just set the size for the image and the text that are part of our page. We could potentially add our caption and our image URL right away, but that will generate only one static page. So this is not what we want. We want our layout to be flexible. So here is where data binding comes in. Let me explain you how it works in a separate scenario first. So let's consider having a parent component like a container. Press the plus button and add the text as the only child. And set the text property to something like I am a text. So now, the data binding process refers to the filling of the data property with an array, and I'm setting it to something like A, B, C, and D. It's basically an array of 4 elements. And as you can see, the text component has been repeated 4 times. And here is where the magic happens. I can set the text to I am a text, my index is $ brackets index, and my data is data. Now every text component generated by the data binding process is able to get its own data based on the index. For example, the text number 1 is getting the first element of the array, the second one is getting the second element, and so on. Now, I have hard-coded the array here into the data property, but you can also add the reference to data that you are hosting in your data sources. So, for example, I'm creating a very basic data structure here, which is going to be referenced as data.properties.values, where values is the name of my array. I'm going to add 3 values in here. So, Amazon, Alexa, and skill, so that the size of the array is 3. Then just go back to the data property of the parent and set it to this, payload.data.properties.values, where payload is just the default name of the main template, as you can see from here, and data.properties.values is the path to get to the values array from our data sources. Now, adding a new element should also generate a new text and get the data of the 4th element. And there it is. It's cool, right? So now that you are a data binding guru, let's apply the same concept to our slideshow project. Alright, first things first. Go on the data property of the pager and set it again to payload.data.properties.values, which is again a reference to our data sources. I am just applying the same concept that I've explained you into the data binding example, but the difference here is that the data structure is gonna be just a bit more complex. Let's build it together. So I guess we can delete it and make it a new JSON object, which should have a page ID that I set to 1, then a caption, let's set it to first page, Amazon, and image URL, in which I will paste the Amazon logo that is a picture uploaded to my S3 bucket. Since our data structure is now ready, go back on the image and replace the full image link with data.imageURL so that it is retrieved from the data sources. Same thing for the text. Let's set it to data.caption so that we can retrieve the actual caption from our data. And from now on, if we want to add a new page, we just need to make sure that this is an array and then basically add a new object with the same properties. Let me speed this up a bit, but I'm basically doing a copy-paste job. Then I will show you the outcome by pressing the preview mode. And there we go. 3 objects in our data, 3 pages in our slideshow. Nice! So now our pager is able to generate a new page for every additional element that we add into the input array, and that is very cool. But you might have noticed that our page is still represented by a container, an image, and a text, as shown here. So how can we make this entire red rectangle here just a custom component? Let's find out. To create a custom component, just go on the main template and press the plus button. Select Create Custom Layout and give it a name like My Page. Now we should move everything that we want to be part of our custom component right below My Page. So for this reason, I'm going to drag the whole container. After doing that, press on My Page again, and here we should set which are the parameters that our custom component should have. Just think about it. We said that our page has an ID, a caption, and an image URL. So let's add internal index that represents our page ID, internal caption for the caption, and internal image URL for the link of our picture. I will be explaining why I'm declaring them with the internal word in a sec. Now, if you press on the pager, we will be able to add a new component called MyPage, which is accepting all the parameters that we have declared for it. Let's set internal index to $index because we need the index of the array that we bound to the pager before. Then internal caption should be data.caption and internal image URL should be data.imageURL. So let me just highlight that this is something that we have already done before. The only difference here is that instead of assigning data.caption to the text component and data.imageURL to the image component, we are now assigning them to my page instead. Okay, let's continue. You will now understand why I set internal for the parameters. Click on the image under my page and change it to be not data.imageURL, but internal image URL. Same for the text, it should just be internal caption. Now, as you might guess, the internal image and text components will receive the data that we set as the parameters of my page. In other words, the my page component is linking its internal image URL property to the image and its internal caption property to the text. Let me prove this to you. I'm gonna change this to hello, and as you can see, the changes are reflected. And hey, it still works, so good job. We are very close to the end, so keep up. The next step now is to build up a mechanism that will let Alexa read the caption for every page swipe. Luckily, the pager has a property called onPageChanged, in which you can set the commands to execute when a page swipe happens. The command that we are going to use is called SpeakItem. It requires a component ID, which is the ID of the component we want to read from, so the text, but it's only working if the destination component has the speech property field. Now, that property can be filled with the URL of an MP3 or the output of a transformer. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Alright, so a transformer is used to transform data into different representations, and since our goal is to let Alexa read the captions and they are provided as a form of a text, then we need a text-to-speech transformer. Let me show you how to declare it within our data sources. So I will be declaring a single text-to-speech transformer for all the data. It has an input path which I'm setting to values star.caption. So values caption. It also needs an output name that I'm setting to transformer output. And the last one is the type. So transformer text to speech. Right, remember that SpeakItem requires a component ID. So I'm setting the ID of the text, which is gonna be my caption text internal index. So all the text components will be called my caption text 0, my caption text 1, and so on. Then the most important thing, the speech property should be set to this long string. It is basically the path of the transformer output. In fact, transformer output is the actual output name used for the text-to-speech transformation. Now the very last step. We need to fill the onPageChanged property of the pager with the SpeakItem command. Let me give you just a pro tip here. I prefer modifying the JSON directly when I need to set properties with bigger values like commands. So onPageChanged, we're gonna set the type to SpeakItem, so the command we want to execute. Then component ID is gonna be our destination, so my caption text, then event.source.value, which just contains the number of the page we land to. For example, if we swipe to the page 2, then event.source.value will have 1. This is just because it starts from 0. Alright, testing time.
Second page, Alexa. Third page, APL.
And back to the first.
First page, Amazon.
So congratulations, you now have an APL document that generates a slideshow based on the input that you provide. So if you want to test it on your device, you can send it from the authoring tool by pressing the View On button, but if you want to render it from a skill, then check out my blog post in the description, in which you will find Node.js and Python examples to do so. So that said, thanks for watching and see you in the next video.